Hello and welcome. Carlton got dismantled at Marvel Stadium against Brisbane. And this was something I always dreaded. When we lost to the Saints a few weeks ago, I thought to myself I'd rather us play a good opponent over the Eagles, because then we wouldn't be deceived by a fresh set of tactics against a shit side and would actually get a better assessment of our team sooner. So we had to wait a week for that to happen, and we found out the hard way where this team is at. Today, we'll be looking at the bloodbath that Carlton fans were subjected to. Now, looking at every game this year, prior to the Brisbane game, small forwards had only combined for 5 goals at the maximum, and that came against the Saints a couple weeks ago. That game aside, no small forward combo had combined for more than 3. We had an outlier this week, with that number inflating to 9. 4 to Charlie Cameron, who's on a tear, Zach Bailey, who had only scored 7 goals prior to Friday, and Lincoln McCarthy. Why is this? Today we'll be looking at the build-up of every single goal these smalls had scored to answer this question. Now, before we begin, let me sprinkle in some key stats. Brisbane, between rounds 2 to 7, were first in defending ball movement. The Blues on the season prior to round 8 were 14th in defending in transition. Carlton, also in the first 6 rounds of the year, were 12th in corridor usage from the back 50, but 2nd in uncontested marks. The first goal. Now, our slow play and uncontested marking game style feeds Brisbane's ability to defend ball movement. The minute we leave the comfort of uncontested play, Brisbane's ability to defend ball movement elevates. Huge credit to Brisbane's small forwards to force a level of pressure that is unwanted for the Blues. Charlie's closeout speed on the initial kick-in foreshadows what we'll see in a few seconds' time. The kick is fine. They block the hand pass to Sard, who's trying to move on the diagonal towards the corridor, which would promote the positive play we've lacked. The call for Akers to play on I don't agree with, but you've got Rayner holding up Akers, and then the added layer of pressure with Cameron that sandwiches Akers. McGovern quickly feeds it to Weeders, who has to end up favouring the left side, and the kick is absolutely rubbish. You see, we've sent numbers further afield for what usually would be a straightforward kick down the line from a kick-in. From there, you've got players loose, players goal side of their opponents, and mismatches. And in the end, McGovern and Lewis Young do Brisbane's dirty work and practically centre the ball for Brisbane smalls to rove, and that's a common theme you'll notice. The second goal. McGovern's taken the grab, and once again he gets called to play on, which is a bit contentious. Now, what this kick demands is one that's lace out and low to suit the personnel, in this case for Honey. McGovern has to send this over the top of 2 players in the path, and the loopy kick sends it well over the target. You can see Brisbane's short kick encourages Carlton to swing their zone across, and that's actually served as a nice diversion for Bailey, who's sprinting back right where the ball came from. And this is a good example that portrays the importance of changing direction constantly and keeping things dynamic. You'll see in the end, the only player taking account is the nearest player, Adam Chera, who is not a defender. And much like when Carlton failed to function playing a style that isn't theirs, Chera in this instance doesn't function when playing a position that isn't his. And a goal follows. Goal number 3. Here's another example of our uncontested play, which isn't progressive. The switch is cut off, so he goes wider. Weeders, for a leader of the club, I don't know why he thought it was rational to try bite off this kick with 90 seconds to play in the quarter. And like the first goal, we've expected the ball to go further afield and have committed numbers there. So when the turnover happens whilst the numbers are even, we need to relocate and don't have the time to do this given the location of the turnover. Numbers have to come up to compensate for those that are trailing behind in transition, then creating the outnumber that we don't want. Hipwood's lead to the pocket has meant Lewis Young needs to consider that, which takes his presence away from a deeper, more dangerous spot. And so Brody Kemp doesn't have the aid of an interceptor against Charlie Cameron, who is a danger, one-on-one and when it hits the ground. The kick complements where Charlie is located, and simultaneously, a light nudge keeps Kemp disadvantaged to take a grab. Goal number 4. Can I just say how poor our intercepting was when we did have the reinforcement? On this occasion, Kemp, McGovern and Weeders in the vicinity, and not one gets a piece of it. Even so, we work hard to collect it, and it should be an exit out of the back 50 irrespective of the quality, until it isn't. Charlie Cameron's closing speed, as we saw a couple clips ago, was a sight to behold, something Carlton doesn't have. A few seconds ago, he was about 40 metres away. Brodie Kemp, the minute he releases the handball, needs to bump bodies and shepherd Charlie Cameron. Instead, he just brushes by, probably wanting a bit of overlap with McGovern. But in doing so, he's given Charlie a ticket to impact the handball. Other Brisbane players hold up Silvani well, and Charlie is there to capitalise on the chance that he initially created, which he does. Goal number 5. This one, like many others, is caused by pressure. But in this case, the pressure isn't actually there, it's perceived. Akers has plenty of time to square up and face what's ahead of him, but he barely assesses what's ahead, and he just kicks it right down the throat of Zach Bailey. So, a small forward's getting a goal, but they had no bearing on the mistake. It's all the work they did in the first half. Goal number 6. Here you can see the difference in a Brisbane exit out the back 50 compared to us. Whilst the Lions turn it over, they're right on our hammer as we're trying to send it back in. You can see how clogged it is going into our forward 50 with all the line numbers that are pushed back. So Brodie Kemp opts for a pretty nothing kick that goes about 10 metres and not even in the forward 50. And Rayner, who's impacted Kemp's kick, then sticks the tackle, and we've squandered an opportunity to get a repeat entry. Now, if I pause the frame here, we've got a massive issue. You can see Kemp, McGovern and Wiedering are all in this contest, with Jack Silvani, who's the ruck. None of them connect with the spoil to send it out of play like many other examples, so we can reset. Instead, we've got a couple at the fall of the footy not picking up a man, and Joe Danaher, like many other Lions, was handy here, recognising how the Lions had crumbed the ball exceptionally well. And so he actually impacts the play and sends it to an unattended line. And so, in the blink of an eye from a free kick which wasn't taken very quickly, we have one Lion beating his man back to goal, a couple others more centrally doing the same, and a wide open 50. The recipe for disaster when your smalls are running right. Newman to cover Lewis Young does the right thing in rotating across, because he will get to the ball first and does. But he doesn't connect nor try to initiate contact to halt things, and so the minute he doesn't impact the play, we have the same disadvantage we had seconds earlier. And now, 2 Lions are goal side of Lewis Young with ball in hand, and it's pretty straightforward from there. Goal number 7. We've picked up a free kick in the back 50. Slow exit again. You can see this is a team well down on confidence because we're entertaining nothing centrally if there's opposition personnel occupying that space. Much like numerous occasions with these goals, the outnumber for the Lions in the air feeds the crummer. Kemp should have stayed down as he's backtracking and not able to go up with momentum. Once again, with no ability to spoil, Gunston sends it skyward, and Newman is yet again on an island with Charlie Cameron. Even if he won this contest, he'd have to do a pretty exceptional job to keep us unscathed, with another line thereabouts. Don't even ask me what's going on with us letting a line run loose in the forward line. Ed Curnow is just about the nearest to Cam Rayner seconds earlier, and he should have left his man to get there, but perhaps even if we get an even contest in the goal square and clear it, that man that Curnow leaves loose probably is a chance of intercepting it and bringing it back into the forward 50. Goal number 8. You can see another easy Lions exit here. We look back to when Charlie's repeat efforts led to turnover, and you can see with our attempted pressure acts, the Lions' possessions aren't really affected, and they can just waltz right past. That's why Charlie Cameron was so valuable for them, doing the job of 5 Lions whilst his teammates can make up the numbers further afield if our players get past him. Now, this play runs and the Lions aren't necessarily ball carrying, nor do we look uncomfortable at any point. Now, yet again, a kick goes upfield, and our representation in the air yet again outnumbers the Lions, but we don't deal with it. The way it lands with Lewis Young, I think it had him a bit surprised, and he's flat-footed. There's representation at ground level through McCarthy, who affects the handball, and then Young sends the handball in a direction opposing Chincotta's run boundary side. And so it's in the danger zone, and Zach Bailey hasn't even had to break stride. That sort of sums us up. The Lions smalls looked like they'd woken up and the Blues were winding down getting ready for bed. Going through the motions and sleepwalking out there. And that's probably why so many of these goals, the Lions look like they're participating in a one-man race. Goal number 9. This goal's a bit different. We've actually got a bit of run through the corridor, but while she acknowledges what's forward, sees nothing and reverts to the default, which is going wide. Starcevic places himself well in front to basically cover this kind of section here, which is where the next kick needs to roughly go. And so instead we've got a kick to Jesus. Don't get me wrong, everything he does to this point is actually pretty good. He takes a turn towards the kicker and leads up with good timing. But given the circumstances, the kick to Jesus is rubbish. Even though the Lions are a bit of distance away, they've funneled the kick to go between the two. Look, I've absolutely no idea where or who this was meant for. Einstein would be stumped. And then you've got a pretty pedestrian exit again. There really wasn't much of a chance to salvage it given where we were all located. Mind you, at this point, the Blues are getting pounded and we've sent numbers back to stop the bleeding, which compromises what you can do in trapping the ball inside 50. The Lions have made the conscious decision to go wide with about 3 minutes to play. In theory, this should be fine. We should be okay. They're stalling. Cool. But even after all this time, I will never understand how Adam Sard is the direct matchup on Hipwood with all this time to relocate. And contested marks open things up when things get congested. And much like the example where Lewis Young was shell-shocked it got through, Nick Newman is the exact same. Everyone is flat-footed because they don't expect it in the slightest, and the difference in energy stands out like wearing a fluoro vest at night. Now, if we see a common theme, many times we fail to spoil or impact the contest, and many times we turn the ball over, affected by the Lions or not. 13 goals, 7 of the 100 points we conceded were from turnovers. That's an alarming figure, as the average for points off turnover we concede now continues to balloon. So overall, Brisbane smalls were the difference. It was a combination of the Lions' pressure that supersedes ours, us self-inflicting the pain through primarily turnover and poor decision making, and also the Lions' key forwards doing an excellent job to exploit the height of our backline by evening up aerial contests and then letting the smalls go to work at ground level. What do you think? Was this just a one-off and uncharacteristic for the backline? Or does the problem extend far beyond this game alone? Thanks for tuning in. We'll return for the round 9 analysis. Bye for now.